The last individual Aiden Rivers anticipated encountering in a serene family eatery was the woman who had disappeared from his life 3 years prior, much less seated at a table with 3 young boys who all possessed his eyes, his hair, and his features. With just a single glance, all that he believed about his history and what lay ahead started to come apart at the seams. Aiden Rivers was not the sort of man who found himself in the wrong place. Each moment of his day was meticulously planned, overseen, and refined by a dedicated team of aides who understood the importance of sticking to the script. That afternoon, however, his driver made an unexpected wrong turn off the freeway because of a sudden traffic change. Instead of reaching the upscale dinner meeting at a lavish hotel downtown, Aiden ended up outside a quaint, hidden Italian restaurant that seemed to have remained unchanged for at least 20 years. He was poised to depart, yet an unseen force held him back. Perhaps it was the flickering sign in the window, perhaps the aroma of garlic bread drifting through the air, or perhaps, though he would never confess it, the burden of exhaustion he had long suppressed. He instructed the driver to remain and ventured inside by himself. The eatery buzzed with warmth and chatter, a cozy family establishment adorned with eclectic tablecloths, candles flickering low, and the joyful sounds of children echoing throughout the space. He selected a spot by the window, took out his phone, and intended to respond to a handful of emails before venturing back out. The ambience didn't suit him. It was excessively vibrant. Excessively chaotic. Yet, there was an element that caused him to hesitate. As he was in the midst of composing a message, a sudden eruption of laughter floated in from behind him. He instinctively raised his gaze, his eyes sweeping across the room until they settled on a table positioned near the center. It was at that moment he caught sight of her. Crimson. He paused for a moment to absorb the information. She had aged a bit, yet there was no doubt it was still her. The same thick dark hair, now gathered into a loose braid, the same fluid movements, the way she inclined her head when she absorbed someone's words. Then he noticed what was around her, 3 little boys, each with dark brown hair and strikingly bright blue eyes. One attempted to maintain a precarious balance of a breadstick atop his nose. One was engaged in a playful dance with a crayon. The third was speaking at such a rapid pace that she found it difficult to follow along. Aiden's heart plummeted to the ground. He observed, captivated, as one of the boys glanced up and chuckled. And it was the sound of his laughter. His precise laughter. The very one his mother would highlight during his childhood. His breath hitched in his throat as he leaned in a bit, squinting, attempting to persuade himself that this wasn't what it unmistakably appeared to be. Indeed, it was. He could perceive it in the contours of their expressions. Within the confines of their jaws. In their gaze, reflections of his essence. These were no ordinary children. They belonged to him. The impact was so profound that it muted all other thoughts within him. All the fury he had harbored for her, all the lingering questions, the manner in which she had vanished from his life 3 years prior without a word, it all surged back, but now it was intertwined with something much more intense. Incredulity. And an emotion teetering on the edge of sorrow. Scarlet had yet to lay eyes on him. She assisted one of the boys in slicing a meatball, her demeanor gentle and understanding, blissfully oblivious to the turmoil unfolding mere feet away. He was utterly immobilized. Struggling for air. It was hard to fathom that the woman he had once envisioned sharing a life with was now right there, enveloped in a reality that had evidently unfolded in his absence. In that instant, Aiden Rivers, the CEO, the billionaire, the untouchable, experienced a sensation he hadn't encountered in years. Helpless. Aiden remained motionless, his heartbeat echoing in his ears, while countless thoughts clashed and crumbled within his mind. He continued to gaze at Scarlet and the 3 boys, a look of bewildered fascination on his face, as if his mind was struggling to process what his eyes had already revealed. For a man who thrived on absolutes, on numbers, and control and certainty, the scene before him shattered something deep within the core of his existence. They bore his resemblance. Each one of them. Identical dark hair, striking blue eyes, and those nuanced expressions that he saw reflected in his own gaze. It was undeniable. These were not merely children, they were his sons. Yet, she had kept it from him all along. He observed Scarlet as she delicately wiped one boy's mouth with a napkin, while gently admonishing another for attempting to crawl under the table. She appeared weary, yet still resilient. She possessed a subtle power, one that stirred memories within him. The kind that had simultaneously captivated and repelled him in those days. He attempted to bridge the gap between the woman before him now and the memory of the one who had silently departed from his life 3 years prior, leaving no explanation in her wake. She had vanished without a trace. On a sunny afternoon, they found themselves on his balcony, laughter filling the air as they shared takeout and tossed around absurd baby names for a future they playfully envisioned. In the blink of an eye, she vanished. No note. Farewell is not an option. Only quietude. He had sought her out. Engaged the services of private investigators. Drawn threads. Placed calls. Her apartment stood desolate, the phone silent, bank accounts shuttered. It felt as though she had completely disappeared from existence. It had shattered a part of him, a part that was delicate, optimistic, and deeply human. Following that, he immersed himself in his tasks. He expanded the business, achieved his first 100 million, acquired a penthouse, and established a brand so formidable that no one ventured to inquire about the past. Yet, deep down, he always found himself pondering her fate. At that moment, clarity dawned upon him. She had not merely departed. She had brought his children along with her. His impulse was to march over, seek explanations, elevate his tone. Yet, an invisible force restrained him. Perhaps it was the manner in which one of the boys extended his hand toward her, prompting her to grasp it instinctively. Perhaps it was the effortless way she moved through their turmoil. Or perhaps it was the peculiar, unaccustomed pain unfurling in his chest, the burden of time that had slipped away. At last, as though attuned to the weight of his gaze, she shifted her head and caught sight of him. Their gazes intertwined. As their eyes locked, time itself appeared to pause in that instant. Her body tightened immediately. Her eyes grew wide. In that fleeting moment, she resembled a person who had just encountered a specter. Her lips parted as if she were about to speak, yet silence enveloped her. He rose gradually. Her gaze trailed after him as he approached her table. Initially, the boys were oblivious to his presence, engrossed as they were in their squabble over crayons. Yet Scarlet remained still. Held my breath. He paused a short distance away. Crimson. Her name tumbled from his lips with the weight of a boulder. Weighty. Authentic. The noise caused her to recoil, just a bit. Aiden, she murmured. Her voice had a unique quality. Still gentle, yet now intertwined with weariness and an additional weight, remorse. He gazed at the boys. They remained oblivious to the events that were taking shape around them. Yet Aiden found himself unable to look away from them. He gestured with a hint of discretion. Here it is. She gave a subtle nod. Truth only. Without a doubt. Indeed. Every ounce of air escaped him. The reality was evident. Inarguable. I believe we need to have a conversation, he said, his voice trembling slightly. Scarlet looked down at the boys, then turned her gaze back to him. Her shoulders squared as if preparing for the inevitable collision. Indeed, she murmured softly. We ought to. Scarlet emerged into the open, her movements deliberate and measured, as though each step bore a newfound significance now that her secret was shared with another. Aiden trailed behind, his mind racing, thoughts echoing loudly and unrestrained in the quiet space that separated them. The restaurant door closed softly, cutting off the cheerful sounds and cozy atmosphere of the families within. The air outside had a distinct crispness to it. Weighty. So genuine that it felt like a struggle to catch my breath. They lingered at the brink of the sidewalk, hidden from the gaze of the restaurant's windows. Scarlet folded her arms firmly across her chest, her posture rigid, chin lifted just enough to convey a sense of defiance, as if bracing herself for an inevitable confrontation that she was determined to face regardless of the outcome. Aiden, however, remained silent for a moment. He merely gazed at her. In her expression, her gaze, the very ones he once etched in his mind when life seemed overwhelmingly intricate. She appeared more mature. Not in a negative sense, but rather more down-to-earth. Yet, there was a spark in her gaze that had not existed previously. A profound melancholy. Or perhaps merely years of enduring existence. He overlooked the questions that were right in front of him. Not at this moment. The reality was painfully bare, achingly vulnerable. He began with something gentler, despite the lingering heat in his throat. "Why didn't you share that with me?" Scarlet blinked, her eyelids fluttering in a deliberate, measured manner. "Because I was filled with fear," she said. "About you. From your perspective. Everything was moving so quickly when I discovered it." He tightened his jaw, battling the surge of anger that threatened to surface too soon. "What, precisely, is causing the fear?" "I wouldn't desire them." "No," she replied swiftly. "I had a feeling you would. I was certain you would show up, take charge, and completely transform your life if necessary. That was my greatest fear." That took him by surprise. "You left, believing I would be overly concerned." Scarlet let out a breath. "I departed because I was unsure how to endure being engulfed by you and your existence. I anticipated the outcome. Captivating titles. Photographic devices. Agreements. Discussions. They would be scrutinized closely as they grew, and I just couldn't bring myself to do that to them. Or for you. You stood at the brink of something monumental, Aiden. I observed your ascent, swift and impressive, and I feared being the burden that hindered your progress." He slowly shook his head, attempting to take it all in. "You were never a burden. You were the one genuine aspect of my existence that felt real. You didn't even allow me the opportunity to make a choice." Her expression faltered, the corners of her mouth tightening. "I never intended to be a weight on your shoulders. My intention was to keep them safe. And perhaps, indeed, perhaps I sought to shield myself as well." He strode once, then pivoted to face her, his gaze intense. "You shielded them by preventing their father from reaching them." "I shielded them from turning into a narrative," she retorted, her voice escalating. "From being traded and exchanged by sensational publications. Being utilized as a tool by individuals who are solely focused on your business. Do you really believe I haven't reflected on my actions each day for the past 3 years?" A prolonged stillness ensued. Neither of them averted their gaze. The silence enveloped them, a stillness born from the intimacy of shared histories now marred by the unfamiliarity of their evolving selves. At last, Aiden's voice took on a gentler tone. "No need to explain your actions, Scarlet. Not at this moment. However, there is one thing I must ascertain." She lingered, tension coiling in her shoulders. "Are they aware of my identity?" She took a deep breath. "They are aware of their father's presence. An admirable individual. I wasn't prepared to introduce someone to their world until I was confident they were prepared as well." Aiden inclined his head with deliberation. In his eyes, there lingered a deep pain, yet intertwined with it was an undeniable sense of resolve. He spoke softly, "I'm here now. And I'm here to stay." Scarlet remained silent, yet a subtle change flickered across her expression. A glimmer of skepticism, perhaps tinged with optimism. She shifted her gaze, peering through the window at the table where the boys remained, blissfully ignorant that the very foundation of their existence was on the verge of transformation. As she cast her gaze back at him, her voice emerged as little more than a whisper. "I'm unsure about how to open up to you, Aiden." "Then allow me to work through this with you," he said. And for the first time since she'd turned her back on him, she stood her ground. The following morning, Aiden found it impossible to concentrate on anything. His phone vibrated with notifications of upcoming meetings, a pile of unread emails loomed over him, and his assistant tapped twice to inquire about his participation in the board call, yet he paid no attention to any of it. His mind lingered beyond the confines of that quaint eatery, positioned on the pavement opposite Scarlet, ensnared in the stillness that ensued after the revelation. For a man accustomed to making swift decisions, who brokered billion-dollar deals before the sun rose, he now found himself ensnared in uncertainty, unsure of how to proceed with even the next step. He was lost, uncertain of the rules that once guided him. He was a father. 3 young lads. His offspring. He had overlooked it all, their initial steps, their first utterances, their very first birthdays. Everything vanished, hidden away in years he could never reclaim. The idea gnawed at him, leaving an unsettling emptiness that filled him with dread. Not due to a sense of guilt, but because he became aware of how deeply he desired something he had never envisioned before. He had a deeper desire to connect with them. He was eager to understand them. To be a part of their world in a manner that transcended wealth, heritage, or reputation. By early afternoon, he found himself back in his car, stationed a block away from Scarlet's unassuming apartment building. It wasn't in an undesirable location, yet it was evident she had opted for a life of simplicity, privacy, and security. He had kept his arrival a secret from her. A part of him understood the possibility that she might not answer, yet the urge to see them once more was undeniable. Even from afar. As he watched her emerge with the boys snugly wrapped in their light jackets, he felt a sudden catch in his breath. They were all intertwined, a delightful disarray, voices overlapping, gesturing at birds, leaves, the vast expanse above. Scarlet noticed him right away. Her expression was one of calm assurance. She paused for a moment, then approached him, her steps measured and intentional. The boys trailed behind her like eager little ducklings, 2 of them pulling at her arms while the third meandered, captivated by a stick he had discovered. "We're heading to the park," she announced as she approached him. Her voice carried a sense of calmness, lacking any chill. "If you'd like, you can join us for a walk." He nodded, struggling to contain the wave of appreciation that welled up inside him. "I would appreciate that." Initially, they strolled side by side, enveloped in an uncomfortable quiet. The boys dashed forward, playfully pursuing one another. Aiden observed them as if witnessing an enchanting spectacle come to life. Each motion they executed seemed almost dreamlike to him. He had lost out on so much. In the end, one of the boys, the tiniest among them, stumbled and fell. Aiden surged ahead as Scarlet began to move. He knelt down, carefully examining the boy's hands for any scrapes. "Hey," Aiden murmured gently, wiping away the grime. "Are you all right, my friend?" The young lad gazed up at him, his eyes sparkling with wonder. "I'm not a friend," he remarked with a sulky expression. "My name is Liam." Aiden stood still. Scarlet offered a subtle smile from the shadows. She confirmed that it's Liam. Jake is the individual dressed in red. And Sam is the one who always tunes out. Aiden sensed a change stirring within him. "Hi, Liam," he repeated, his voice gentler this time. I am your father." The young lad inclined his head thoughtfully. "Is that so?" He gave a slight nod. "Indeed. Truly." Liam observed him intently for a brief moment, then suddenly, he encircled Aiden's neck with his small arms. It was unexpected. It was spontaneous. It was merely a fleeting instant, a natural response of youth. And it unraveled him. Aiden remained crouched in that spot long after Liam had dashed ahead. Scarlet stood beside him, her expression a mystery, yet her arms had unfolded. Neither of them uttered a word. There was no necessity for her to do so. He sensed it in the quiet that enveloped them, a new beginning stirring to life. Upon returning to the apartment, she extended an invitation for him to come inside. Not for a dialogue, not for understanding, but because the boys were eager to display their superhero wall, a chaotic assembly of drawings, stickers, and crayon scribbles affixed to their bedroom. He stepped inside, eager to soak in every moment, every nuance, their voices, their habits, the effortless way they embraced her. In the heart of their universe, surrounded by toys strewn at his feet and the sound of laughter resonating from the hallway, Aiden came to a realization that was both daunting and exquisite. He longed to be more than just a guest in their lives. He wished to remain. Aiden started appearing daily, always with an invitation in hand. He reached out to Scarlet first, consistently inquiring, never taking anything for granted. With each simple yes or brief, courteous response, she subtly widened the gap just a bit more. The boys accepted his unexpected arrival without hesitation. Children embraced certainty in a way that adults often struggle to understand. They welcomed him as they welcomed all things in their world, with an open curiosity and a refreshing honesty that made Aiden feel as though he was rediscovering life from the very beginning. He discovered that Liam had a passion for dinosaurs, that Sam possessed the ability to name every planet in the solar system, and that Jake, though reserved, radiated warmth when someone truly engaged with him. Initially, they referred to him as Aiden, a name that pierced him more than he revealed. He chose not to correct them. He preferred not to impose anything. One afternoon, after assisting Sam in constructing a rocket ship from cardboard boxes in the living room, Jake settled beside him, leaned in, and gently asked, "Are you going to be my dad now?" The inquiry struck him with more force than any surprise attack in the conference room ever could. He gazed into Jake's intense blue eyes and responded in the only manner possible. "If that is your desire." Jake nodded in silence, yet as the evening unfolded, all three boys began to refer to him as Dad. No formalities. No alert. A mere transition, as straightforward yet deep as the flip of a page. Scarlet observed everything in silence. She maintained her distance, not devoid of warmth, but rather cautious. For years, she had meticulously constructed barriers around herself and her children, fortifications designed to shield them from a world she had once feared could bring about their ruin. In that moment, the universe had taken up residence in her living room, crafting peanut butter sandwiches and mending broken toy trucks with nothing but duct tape and sheer willpower. The upcoming weeks unfolded into a subtle metamorphosis that neither of them had anticipated. Aiden began to appear in the boys' lives consistently, not as a disturbance or upheaval, but as a reliable presence. Scarlet, ever vigilant, maintained her defenses initially. She provided only what was needed, and Aiden refrained from pressing further. He understood that she was poised, anticipating whether he would vanish once more, if his existence was merely another act, another fleeting spark from a man who resided in a realm constructed on mastery and separation. Yet, on this occasion, he found himself without a way out. He arrived on Sundays for excursions to the park. He arrived with art supplies and eagerly participated in finger painting sessions, resulting in his expensive shoes being splattered with glitter and glue. He assisted in constructing blanket forts in the living room and swiftly discovered that Sam had a strong aversion to peas, Jake had a passion for dinosaurs, and Liam demanded to be referred to as Captain Lightning at least once each day. He faced no inquiries from them. They embraced him effortlessly, as if he had always been a part of them, as though they had been anticipating his arrival all along. The acceptance shattered him in the most subtle yet profound manner. Scarlet observed everything with a watchful gaze. She had never encountered him in this manner before. The man she recalled from their history was refined, composed, and somewhat aloof in his warmth. This portrayal, this figure on the floor fastening shoelaces, crafting bedtime tales, lingering in the quiet after they drifted off, was a completely different essence. She was at a loss for how to handle that. Every aspect of her that had toughened to endure now seemed laid bare. Not due to any demands he made, but rather because he made none at all. One evening, after the boys had finally drifted off to sleep, Scarlet entered the kitchen to discover Aiden quietly scrubbing the dishes. Without a single question or utterance, he simply rolled up his sleeves and began to tidy up. The image of him standing there, seemingly out of place yet oddly at ease, took her by surprise. "You don't need to do that," she said, leaning against the doorway. He glanced back, a subtle smile playing on his lips. "I understand. However, I have the desire to." With her arms crossed, she observed him intently for a brief moment. "You consistently excelled at pursuing your desires." He shut off the faucet, taking his time to dry his hands before turning to face her completely. "Not every time. I excelled at fulfilling what I believed I should desire. There exists a distinction." Her reply was not immediate. Her defenses remained intact, yet an undeniable warmth was blossoming within her, despite her struggle to resist it. "I'm uncertain about placing my trust in this. Any of it." "I understand," he replied softly. "And I'm not expecting you to place your trust in me right away. Allow me to remain in this space. Allow me to demonstrate." She cast her gaze downward, her eyes tracing the patterns on the floor. "You've overlooked it all. Their initial utterances, their inaugural strides, celebrations of birth, bouts of illness, outbursts of emotion. You overlooked everything." He gave a slight nod. "I understand. And that time is lost to me forever. Yet, I find myself present at this moment. And if you allow me, I won't overlook anything again." The stillness enveloped them, yet it carried warmth. It was dense with unspoken words, something vibrant and throbbing. She yearned to trust him. Desired to welcome him again. Yet, the fear of the unknown gripped her heart. To love him once more would mean not only risking her own heart but also the hearts of 3 others. Aiden moved ahead, maintaining a respectful distance, ensuring his voice carried clearly without any physical contact. "I have changed since you were last here. Perhaps you have also transformed in ways you didn't expect. Perhaps that's perfectly fine." She lifted her gaze, locking eyes with him. They lacked any semblance of performance. Lack of drive. There is no plan in place. Only honesty. "I need time," she said at last. "You can have it all," he responded. With that, she gave a slight nod. It was not a commitment. It was not an act of forgiveness. Yet, it marked the initial genuine stride towards something they both believed had vanished. Something delicate, yet deserving of an attempt. As the days transitioned into weeks, a fresh cadence started to emerge. It was imperfect, unpredictable, yet it was genuine. Aiden integrated into their daily existence, not through grand gestures or bold proclamations, but through subtle, intentional actions. He began showing up early to assist in preparing the boys for school and lingered long enough to share bedtime stories, even when his work pulled him in different directions. He didn't attempt to win their favor. He refrained from inundating them with presents or ostentatious diversions. He arrived repeatedly, with a calm reliability, as though each moment presented an opportunity to reclaim a fragment of the time he had squandered. Scarlet observed her surroundings with a wary spirit. She longed to convince herself that the man meticulously folding tiny socks on her couch and constructing Lego castles in the living room was the same Aiden she had once adored, yet transformed in all the right ways. Still, the fear lingered within her, never truly fading away. For 3 long years, she had navigated every challenge on her own, facing each tantrum, attending every doctor visit, and making every difficult decision by herself. It had forged her resilience, yet it had also constructed barriers so towering that she often found it difficult to discern whether they were safeguarding her or leaving her alone. As the evening descended and autumn's chill began to settle in, Scarlet nestled on the porch steps, a blanket draped over her shoulders, observing the boys darting after fireflies in the dimming glow. Aiden settled next to her, his elbows propped on his knees, the sleeves of his dress shirt casually rolled up, exuding a quiet ease in a domestic scene that had once felt unfamiliar to him. "They mention you constantly these days," she remarked after a prolonged pause. "Even in your absence." He gazed at her, his face a mask of mystery. "What are their words?" She offered a gentle smile. "Liam mentioned that your voice resembles Batman's." Jake believes you have the ability to mend anything. Sam inquired whether you're familiar with flying a plane, stating, quote, he's wealthy and wealthy individuals engage in such activities. Aiden chuckled, yet there was a depth of feeling beneath the surface. They are truly remarkable. Indeed, they are, she remarked. And they belong to me. Each breath, each scar, every part of them. I may not have achieved perfection, but I poured my heart and soul into it. He nodded, a grave expression settling on his face. I understand. I always had complete faith in that. Even in my moments of anger, even when the reasons for your departure eluded me. I understood that you were acting in accordance with your convictions. Scarlet's eyes shimmered softly in the dim glow. I remain uncertain about whether it was. I simply understood that I couldn't nurture them in your environment. Perhaps, I was simply unaware of how to do it. Aiden straightened his posture, his voice steady yet resolute. Let's create something fresh. Not my own. Not for you. Ours. A place where they can thrive without having to shed their true selves. She gazed at him intently, her fingers gripping the edges of her blanket with increasing tension. I prefer not to bring them up with someone who may leave when challenges arise. He said, I turn my back on everything but you. The sole thing I truly lament losing was the bond we shared. And now, those individuals. Me. This. I refuse to turn my back. This time, no. What he said was the most exposed and raw expression she had ever encountered. And it shattered a barrier within her. As the night settled in, with the boys tucked away in slumber and the house enveloped in stillness, she presented him with a neatly folded piece of paper. There lay the birth certificates of the boys. His name was absent from the list. Up until this moment, it had not been. I'm prepared for them to discover the truth about their father, she murmured. In accordance with the law. Completely. Beyond mere tales. Aiden stared at the paper for an extended period, burdened by the significance of its implications. This transcended mere parenthood. The theme revolved around the concept of forgiveness. Concerning trust. Reflecting on the experience of being welcomed into a realm that had previously been entirely inaccessible to him. He glanced over his shoulder at her, his tone gentle yet resolute. Thanks a lot. Scarlet nodded, and for the first time, her eyes reflected a newfound certainty. They were in the process of creating something new. Not beginning anew, as what they once possessed had vanished. Yet what awaited them was uncharted territory, an opportunity neither had envisioned they would encounter again. Every difficult discussion, every wound, every quiet evening was worth it. The legal proceedings unfolded at a pace that caught Aiden off guard, yet he chose to remain silent about it. Each encounter with the attorney, every mark made on paper, every thorough investigation, all seemed like progress towards a foundation that felt unshakable, something that wouldn't slip away from him again. He absorbed each moment with a profound sense of respect, as if the documentation finally aligned with the truth he sensed deep within himself. He was their father, not merely in memory or biology, but in presence, in choice, in every morning spent helping them get dressed and every night dedicated to reading until they softly fell asleep. Scarlet observed the change in silence, her mind racing to define the connection unfolding before her. They had not rekindled their relationship, at least not in any formal sense. There was neither a kiss nor any grand romantic declarations. Aiden found himself in her home nearly every day. He was aware of the location of the cereal, which boy required his blanket to be warmed in the dryer before bedtime, and which one continued to wake up plagued by nightmares. He meticulously folded laundry as she managed emails, discovered the art of crafting pancakes adorned with smiley faces, and even took the time to braid Scarlet's hair amidst the morning whirlwind when one of the boys innocently inquired, "Why doesn't mommy get a turn too?" As the sun dipped below the horizon, the boys were nestled in their beds, and an unusual stillness enveloped the home. Aiden sat on the porch once more, a notebook resting open on his lap. Scarlet stepped outside, cradling 2 mugs of tea, and silently offered him one with a gentle gesture. He accepted it, taken aback by the kindness, and looked at her with a weary yet appreciative gaze. "What is that?" she inquired, gesturing towards the notebook. He paused momentarily before responding. "Titles. Titles. Regarding the trust fund I am establishing. It's not solely for them. For those who share their experience. Children nurtured by resilient mothers who managed everything independently." Scarlet remained silent initially. She took a delicate sip of her tea, her gaze drifting to the serene street beyond. "I never wanted your money," she said eventually, her voice barely above a whisper. "Indeed," he remarked. "That's the reason I wish to offer it." She glanced at him then, and a silence enveloped them, the sort rich with significance yet lacking closure. She remained uncertain about how to navigate all of it, how consistently he had shown up, how tender, how transformed. She yearned to trust that this was not a fleeting moment, that it wasn't merely an overreaction driven by guilt. Yet, a profound voice within her continued to caution her to tread lightly. "What brings you here, Aiden?" she inquired abruptly. "Are the kids the only ones affected?" He took his time before responding. He shut the notebook, placed it down, and turned to fully engage with her. "No," he replied. "It all began with them. However, it's not solely about them. It's you as well." Scarlet breathed out gently, her heart racing in a manner that was both nostalgic and new. "I'm not sure I can bear the thought of losing you once more," she confessed. "If I allow this to escalate and it crumbles, the impact won't be limited to just myself. It will cause them pain as well." He stated that he wasn't requesting you to jump. "Simply to accompany me on this journey. And if I'm unable to, then I shall continue my journey regardless. Regardless of the title, the label, or any other designation. I will remain present. This is precisely where I was meant to be from the very beginning." Her throat constricted. He had no intention of winning her over. He didn't even make an effort to convince her. He was simply speaking the truth. That evening, she chose not to send him away. And when he lingered, dozing on the couch, cocooned in one of the boys' superhero blankets, it wasn't out of necessity, nor was it a matter of his own insistence. It was as if, gradually and softly, he was transforming into a sense of belonging. That year, winter arrived gently, ushering in early twilight and serene mornings blanketed in frost. The boys had reached an age where they could sense the shift in the atmosphere, where the thrill of donning coats and gloves mingled with the anticipation of snow began to stir within them. Scarlet observed them with heightened attention, noting how they rushed into Aiden's embrace the instant he entered, how they leaned against him as if they had always anticipated his presence. At times, it still surprised her, the way it appeared so effortless, so genuine. Yet, the journey to that point was anything but straightforward. She had crafted this existence piece by piece with her own hands, and unexpectedly, Aiden had re-entered it and become an integral part of the structure. One evening, just before the holidays, the house was alive with excitement. The boys busily adorned a petite tree that Scarlet had chosen earlier that week, each one bickering over the privilege of placing their favorite ornament. Aiden settled on the floor amidst the turmoil, grinning as he wrestled with a string of lights that seemed determined to resist his efforts. Scarlet lingered in the doorway, cradling a mug in her hands, observing the scene unfold, allowing herself to embrace the depth and comfort of the moment. Later, once the boys had drifted off and the house embraced a rare tranquility that followed a joyful day, Aiden discovered her perched on the edge of the bed she once occupied in solitude. She remained silent as he entered the room. She gazed at him, her eyes gentle yet cautious, still inquiring about a question he had not fully addressed. He traversed the space and settled next to her, near enough to sense the warmth radiating from her skin yet distant enough to avoid contact. "There's no need to say anything," he remarked. "However, I believe it is necessary for me to do so." She cast a glance in his direction, anticipation hanging in the air. He stated that he hadn't returned to amend what was already done. "I am unable to do that. I've squandered an abundance of time, and it's something I can never reclaim. Yet, I can exist in this moment. I desire to be there for you, for them, in any capacity you allow. Take your time. There are no timelines. Only honesty. Scarlet gazed at her hands for a prolonged moment before she finally found her voice. This was once the stuff of my dreams. Regarding your return. Yet in the dream, I felt a surge of anger. I shouted. I ensured you worked for it. He offered a soft smile. That seems reasonable. But now that you're here, she continued, all I feel is exhaustion. Exhausted from carrying the weight of it all by myself. Exhausted from the fear of relying on others. There's no need for fear, he said. Relying on others doesn't signify weakness. It exposes my fragility. Then allow yourself to be open, he said softly. Alongside me. She gazed at him, truly gazed at him, and recognized not the figure she had once fled from but the one who had come back and remained. The individual who intertwined strands with unrefined hands, who narrated tales at dusk with an abundance of emotion, who pressed lips to scrape knees and fastened little shoes without ever seeking recognition. The man who transformed, not at her request, but because life necessitated it and he embraced the opportunity to evolve. She extended her hand, allowing it to rest softly on his. I can't bear to face this solitude any longer, she murmured. You won't need to do that again. They refrained from kissing. Not on that particular night. It wasn't focused on that. It was in the gentle way her head settled against his shoulder moments later. His hand found hers and held on tightly, refusing to release its grip. The silence that once lingered between them transformed into a serene tranquility. Time slipped by. The documents have been completed. Aiden's name was inscribed, officially and eternally, alongside theirs. He settled into a quaint little house just 2 blocks down, providing Scarlet with some breathing room, yet never quite enough. They navigated co-parenting effortlessly, filled with warmth and laughter. Gradually, the affection that had long been concealed beneath layers of hurt and separation started to emerge once more, authentic this time, fortified by all it had endured. On a serene Sunday morning, with snow gently cascading outside and the boys nestled between them on the couch, cartoons softly flickering on the screen, Scarlet turned to Aiden and perceived not the man he once was or the errors of his past. She noticed the man who remained. The individual who arrived. The individual who, despite all challenges and after enduring every tempest, had returned home. For me, the conclusion of this narrative transcends mere resolution. It embodies a subtle victory of love that is deserved, not taken for granted. It's a story of 2 individuals separated by fear and silence, yet they rediscovered each other through presence, growth, and patience. The strength of this ending lies not in a flawless resolution, but in the characters' decision to embrace one another once more, carrying their scars, their past, and the burdens of their experiences. Aiden does not come back as a hero. He returns as someone ready to shed his former identity, to appear each day not with lofty vows, but with steady reliability. Scarlet is not one to easily forgive. She fiercely guards her children, maintains her boundaries, and only allows her heart to reopen when she genuinely perceives a transformation in him. Their reunion feels justified, rooted not in nostalgia or fantasy, but in the individuals they have grown into and the commitment they are ready to embrace together. What I appreciate most is how the narrative respects healing, not merely as a concept, but as a tangible, everyday journey. The characters acknowledge the pain of the past without pretense. They recognize it, and they create something greater as a result. In a landscape dominated by instant solutions and shallow transformations, this conclusion stands out as something truly exceptional. It's soft. It has a solid foundation. And that is what renders it truly memorable.